The phone vibrated just as Victor lifted his champagne, a rising starlet named Amber draped on either side of him. Under the flashes he looked regal and bored. The screen lit up. Shaw email. Sender, Sophie. Subject, divorce agreement, please review. The lazy smile froze on his lips. He dialed my number. Sophie, don't be dramatic. I laughed softly. Children's bright laughter spilled behind me. Victor, my lawyer will call you Monday. Enjoy your party. I ended the call with a clean flick. Victor held the phone, the call cut logo glowing, the first crack threading across the handsome face everyone was toasting. Amber edged closer, voice honeyed, Mr. Sterling, who was that? Was it sister? Should I explain we were only talking business? Her eyes aped my coolness yet brimmed with fawning calculation. Explain? Explain why you're sitting in my seat in a knockoff gown? He dragged his gaze from the screen to her, the look was ice. She's not your sister. He shoved back his chair, snatched his tailored suit jacket, snapped, party's over, and strode out. A ballroom of stunned guests and a blood-drained Amber were left behind. In the Rolls-Royce back seat he dialed again, this time a robotic woman answered, the number you have reached is switched off. He yanked loose his tie and barked at the chauffeur, Cloudtop Estate, fast. He was sure this was merely my latest round of playing hard to get. 8 years of marriage, I had shelved my career to cook for him, anchor his home, raise their 2 children, allowed myself to devolve from a woman who could shift capital into a fixture that waited for his key in the lock. He had grown used to my obedience, my patience, the lamp I left on. Therefore he believed I could never leave. The drive that normally took Shaw hour was crushed into 30 minutes. When the wrought iron gates swung open his heart lurched. Too quiet. Usually, no matter the hour, a warm sconce burned for him in the foyer. Tonight the mansion crouched in black silence, a silent beast. He fumbled the hallway light on. Sophie? No answer. He stepped into the cavernous living room. He headed for the bar out of habit, reaching for a glass, but the crystal tumblers I had chosen for him were gone. Not only the glasses. The framed photo of the 4 of us, gone. The cashmere throw I had knitted, gone. The children's cartoon slippers by the door, gone. Victor's pulse stuttered. He took the stairs 2 at a time and shoved open the master bedroom door. In the walk-in closet, my half stood bare. On the vanity every jar and bottle had vanished, only a single sheet of paper remained. The printed email, divorce agreement. 5 words, 5 red-hot needles jabbed into his pupils. He stormed into the kids' rooms. Noah's plush dinosaur, Ella's Barbies, tiny backpacks, miniature easel. Everything that proved they had lived here was erased. Cloudtop Estate felt as if a surgeon had sliced away every cell of us and stitched the skin neatly shut, leaving him alone with his cold, expensive things. Breath ragged, he stumbled downstairs and punched his chief staff's number in the dark. Find her. Find Sophie and my children, now. The man on the other end stammered Shaw oath to begin immediately. When the line went dead, Victor collapsed on the sofa, panic flooding him for the first time in years. He had assumed Sophie was Shaw extension of the house, a backdrop to his brilliant life. He had never imagined the backdrop could walk off the set. At that moment I sat in a sky lounge 30 floors above downtown, skyline glittering beneath me. Noah and Ella were asleep in their newly painted bedrooms, small faces serene. I powered the phone on. Dozens of missed calls and texts from Victor avalanched in. I deleted them without reading and blacklisted the number. 8 years, enough. I am not from this world. I transmigrated into the novel, the sickly CEO's exclusive possession. My mission, save the hero whose childhood was hell and whose psyche was cracked. I did it. I fished him from his stepmother's abuse, steadied him through adolescence, fed him my modern business knowledge, helped him claw back the Sterling dynasty and stand atop its peak. I became his light, his redemption. According to plot we should have stayed happy. For a while we were, but the brightest lamp, left on too long, becomes wallpaper. Once the world knelt to him, he missed the thrill of walking blades. The Redeemer turned into scenery. He came home late, cancelled with work, let tabloid rumors bloom on his arm. He banked on my staying, for the children, for the Sterling name. He miscalculated. My brief was to redeem him, not sacrifice myself. Mission accomplished. The extra 8 years were my sentimental bonus. Now the account is zeroed. I gazed at the lights below and dialed. Morgan? It's Sophie. A delighted boom answered. Alex. You're back. The project you pitched, genius. We've run the numbers. I smiled. I'm executing it myself. I need a CEO. Interested? Morgan didn't hesitate. Yes. I'll quit tomorrow. When I hung up, the long breath I released tasted like new air. Since deciding to divorce, I had spent half a year preparing. Part of my prenup nest egg plus Victor's spending money transfers had quietly seeded a new venture fund. My holdings were already severed from Sterling Industries by layered but legal vehicles. I had toured this penthouse duplex, renovated it to the children's dreams, and retained the sharpest family court shark. Even the first brick of my future empire lay mortared in place. Victor had noticed nothing. While he thought me occupied with flowers and sauces, I had sat before screens, moving 8-figure sums, drawing the blueprint of the life waiting after him. He mistook me for a vine. In truth, I was a seed that could canopy the sky. I had only twined around him long enough. Victor sat in the hollow manor until dawn. When the sun slid over the horizon, his chief staff rang back, voice hoarse with dread. "Sir, ma'am, Alex bought a penthouse duplex at Riverside a month ago. Yesterday she moved the children in. All her assets were transferred away last week. She holds 0 links to Sterling International now. And she's incorporated Shaw outfit called Northstar Capital, herself as legal rep." Each clause was a mallet to the skull. He hurled the key fob, roared off to Riverside, but the private elevator demanded a resident card. Security politely parked him in the lobby. Phone, still black-holed. Property office bowed, no admittance without owner approval. The woman who once orbited him had built a wall he could not climb. The next several days Victor's universe dissolved into wreckage. Without me there to hand him the tie and cufflinks I'd chosen, he stared at the wall of luxury goods and, for the first time, felt lost. The breakfast table no longer held the gentle stomach-soothing dishes I used to make. The new nanny timidly set down greasy fried eggs, and he flung the plate away after one bite. At the office, a crucial overseas acquisition stalled, and instinctively he started to call me, only to remember the perfect wife who could slice to the heart of any deal was gone. On the weekend he finally saw the children. I'd had the chauffeur deliver Noah and Ella back to Cloudtop Estate. He rushed forward, wild with joy, arms open for a hug. 5-year-old Ella dodged him and asked in a tiny voice, "Daddy, where's Mommy? Why didn't Mommy come?" 7-year-old Noah, face stern, spoke like a miniature adult. "Daddy, did you make Mommy angry again? Teacher says it's wrong to keep making people mad." He tried to cast Amber in the role of loving mother. She wore my old beige maxi dress and awkwardly sliced fruit for the kids. Ella shoved her away and wailed, "You're not Mommy." "I want Mommy." Noah went further, grabbed a water glass, and hurled the contents at Amber. "Bad woman. Stay away from my dad." Amber shrieked, makeup streaking, mortified. Victor's head exploded in a roar of white noise. Looking at his sobbing daughter, his hostile son, and the useless woman beside them, a blind fury shot straight to his skull. "Get out," he thundered at Amber. She flinched, burst into tears, and ran. All afternoon Victor coaxed and comforted. But no matter how many toys he bought or promises he made, the children repeated only one line, "We want Mommy." That evening, when he delivered the exhausted, sleeping kids back to me, Victor finally caught me downstairs. I'd just left the office, sleek in a power suit, makeup flawless, radiance on high beam, unrecognizable from the gentle stay-at-home wife he'd married. He lunged and caught my wrist, voice raw, "Sophie, what the hell do you want? When you're done throwing your tantrum, come home." The reek of cigarettes mingled with perfume that clung to him turned my stomach. I jerked free almost by reflex. "Home? Which home? The one filled with you and your flock of fluttering starlets?" I stepped back, putting cold space between us, tone calm as weather chat. "Mr. Sterling, there's nothing left to discuss. My lawyer will handle the divorce details. As for the children, I won't budge on custody, but visitation can be negotiated." "Mr. Sterling?" he echoed, wounded rage flashing in his eyes. "That's what you call me, what else?" I stared at him like he was a stranger throwing a fit. "Victor, we're divorced. Accept it." I turned and walked away without a backward glance. He watched me go and, for the first time, felt fear, not the fear of losing a wife, but the slow suffocation of air being sucked from his lungs. The turning point, or what Victor mistook for one, arrived a week later at Sterling Industries' anniversary gala. As the former Mrs. Sterling, I'd received Shaw invitation too. He took it as a white flag. That night he cleared his schedule and arrived early, gaze sweeping the crowd like radar. When I appeared at the entrance, every head turned. I wore a sapphire velvet gown, cut sharp and slim, skimming the body I'd honed in the gym. Hair swept up, neck bared, lips a vivid scarlet. I was no longer the muted backdrop trailing behind him, I was my own queen. What made his pupils quake was the man at my side, Jake, the rising teen heartthrob. Jake was the lead in my new company's first film project and tonight my escort. Young, gorgeous, radiating boyish energy, he looked at me with naked admiration. Victor's face went black ice cold. Whispers rippled. Isn't that Sophie? Why is she with Jake? Didn't she just divorce Sterling? Already moved on? You don't get it, she started her own firm, she's his boss now. That's called building Shaw Empire. Damn, she shines even brighter without him. Each comment drilled into Victor's ears. Carrying a champagne flute, he cut through the crowd straight toward me. He loomed, that familiar arrogance and possessiveness coating every word. Sophie, who exactly are you dressed to kill for? Jake bristled, ready to fire back. I silenced him with a look. Who for? For you, of course, so you could see how brilliantly I live without you. I lifted my eyes, offered a boardroom-perfect smile. Mr. Sterling, long time no see. You look tired. I lightly indicated the shadows beneath his eyes. Busy at the office, or no one taking care of you at home? The barb hit dead center, his expression darkened further. He reached to grip my arm and pull me away from Jake. Come with me. His fingertips were inches from my skin when I jerked back as if electrocuted, revulsion plain. That tiny recoil hurt more than any slap. Victor's hand froze midair, heart clamping in Shaw invisible vice. He'd forgotten my severe misophobia. He still carried last night's whiff of Amber's perfume on his clothes. In the past I'd made him shower before he touched me, he'd called it nitpicking. Now the quirk he'd scorned had become Shaw unbridgeable moat. Mr. Sterling, I said, tucking my hand back around Jake's arm, smile polite, if it's business, book time through my assistant. If it's personal, there's nothing to say. Excuse us. Gracefully I turned, leaving him stranded. He became the night's running joke. The almighty Sterling CEO discarded like trash by his ex-wife in front of the entire city. He watched me drift away, laughing with Jake, while pitying, mocking, gloating eyes swarmed him. The crystal flute in his fist shattered. Blood trailed between his fingers, yet he felt no physical pain. Something far sharper was spreading from his heart to every limb. That public humiliation ignited Victor's obsession. He would rein me in the only way he knew, attack. When he couldn't reach me, he targeted those around me. Funding for Jake's film vanished overnight as investors pulled out in unison. 2 major partnerships my new company had sealed were abruptly cancelled. Morgan, my fresh-hired CEO, received a cease and desist from his former employer, accused of stealing trade secrets. Everyone recognized Victor's fingerprints. He would strangle my world until I crawled back begging for mercy. Morgan and the senior staff slumped around the conference table, sighing in despair. I stayed eerily calm. He's using the very tactics I taught him. Turning my own playbook against me? Amateur. I clicked the projector, a web of names lit the screen. Morgan, remember the competitor we mapped, Voyager Group? Cameron nodded. Old school fortress. Sterling's been banging on their door for years and got nowhere. I tapped Shaw's inconspicuous note on the chart. Voyager's chairman has a sister in Europe, a famous oil painting collector. I happen to own the one piece she's hunted for a decade. That painting was my rainy day ace, bought with my own savings before I ever crossed into this world. Jake, I continued, turning to the silent teen, relax. The cowards who yanked money are the ones who kneel to Sterling. Real money hasn't even entered the room yet. I called up another file. This is A-list director James Lee's next prestige project. I own the only script he wants. I'll set a meeting. Around the table jaws dropped. They gaped at me as though I were omnipotent. They didn't realize I was simply a player with the script already in her hand. Victor believed he had severed every path I could walk. He was wrong. Little did he know, I had never planned to travel the road he drew for me. I was on a heavenly highway he couldn't see, couldn't reach. At that same moment Victor was trying to plug the hole I'd left with Amber. He forced her to study every move I made, how I held a teacup, how I arranged flowers, the books I read, even the cadence of my voice. At first Amber was giddy, certain she was about to rise. She dressed in my style, moved into Cloudtop Estate, sat in my old chair, and cautiously played the part of Sophie. But the dream soured fast. Victor would come home drunk in the small hours, clutch her, and call my name. When she cooked a perfect meal he'd suddenly fling down his chopsticks and snap, "It doesn't taste like hers." He'd stare straight through her, as if searching for someone else in her eyes. The emptiness and madness in that gaze made her skin crawl. What she got wasn't love, it was a man-sick obsession. She had become my stand-in, a puppet living in my shadow. The instant she tried to push back, to show even a flicker of Amber, Victor's disgust only chilled further. You can't even copy her right, what use are you? Amber unraveled. She finally understood, she could never be Sophie. She was only the cheap substitute Victor used to numb himself. 1 month later, Voyager Group issued a triumphant announcement. It had forged a strategic alliance with my North Star Capital to co-finance Jake's new film Chaser of Light. Hollywood followed with word that director James Lee had cast Jake as second male lead in his next blockbuster. The industry quaked. I, Sophie, the ex-wife, Victor had cast aside, hadn't fallen. I had stepped onto a wider stage in a fiercer spotlight. Victor's attempted blacklisting had become a joke, and our divorce trial formally opened. Victor's legal crew tried to paint me as a gold-digging parasite who'd never held a job, arguing I should leave with the smallest slice possible. During the 8-year marriage, Jordan held no profession. Every dollar spent came from Mr. Sterling. Her contribution to Sterling Industries' commercial value is zero, his attorney asserted, voice ringing with confidence. Seated at the defendant's table, Victor kept his face blank, but his eyes were welded to me, waiting for a flinch, a tremor. I merely tipped my chin to my own counsel. My lawyer rose and handed the judge a file, hundreds of pages, password sealed. Your Honor, these are portions of the business consultation records my client, Jordan, produced for Sterling Industries across 8 years of marriage. The projector flared. On screen the bullet points marched. 2016, Sterling intended to acquire Blue Ocean Tech. Jordan warned of a hidden fiscal sinkhole and recommended the superior target Deep Space Intelligence. The decision saved Sterling $5 billion in losses and generated more than $10 billion in gains. 2018, a European financial tempest nearly capsized Sterling's overseas arm. Jordan used her contacts to secure crucial life support funding from a Rothschild cousin. 2020, in the battle for the South Riverfront parcel, Jordan proposed a besieged way to rescue Zhao Gambit that let Sterling win the land for 30% below market. Case after case, every pivotal fork in Sterling's corporate history scrolled past, milestones that, in the press, had been draped around Victor's neck as proof of his Midas gift. No outsider knew the true strategist was me. I'd converted my transmigrated market foresight into precision guidance whispered across pillows to Victor, each time saving the recordings, emails, encrypted chats, voice memos. The courtroom sank into stunned silence. Even Victor's counsel broke into a nervous sweat. Victor's complexion cycled from livid white to ash gray, his stare fixed on me, shock, rage, humiliation, and something he refused to name, terror. He'd believed I was his accessory. He'd assumed every triumph was forged by his hand alone. Now the cruel mirror showed that half the bedrock of his empire had been quarried by me, and he had personally flung away his own money goddess. The verdict arrived. I walked away with nearly 1/3 of Victor's personal fortune and, as core technology contributor, a block of preferred shares in Sterling International. Sunlight flooded the courthouse steps. From behind me Victor called, "Sophie," his voice cracking for the first time. "Why?" I turned, finding the man I once loved and once rescued now hollow-cheeked. Why? "Because you stopped cherishing first." I slipped off my sunglasses and offered a smile empty of love, empty of hate, only clear, cool distance. "Mr. Sterling, pleasure doing business." I slid into Jake's waiting car and sped away, leaving Victor rooted on the marble like a statue whose soul had been gouged out. My victory became one more bale of straw on Victor's breaking back, yet the cruelest blow came from his parents. The same patrician pair who derided my common blood now rang my phone. My once aristocratic mother-in-law's voice trembled near begging, "Little Sophie, can't you and Victor try again? You have 2 children. He's not well, the share price keeps slipping. Come home, help him." "I was wrong, I apologize. Now that you need me, it's too late." I let her finish, then answered in the gentlest tone laced with steel. "I'm afraid you've forgotten, Victor and I are legally done. The children are thriving, and Sterling's balance sheet is no longer my concern. Good day." When Victor learned his own parents had bent the knee to me, he detonated. He shattered every breakable thing in the house, a caged beast in a storm of crystal and chrome. The new nanny cowered in a corner. When exhaustion finally dropped him to the ruined carpet, he reread my consultation log until dawn. Page after page carved the same truth deeper. He hadn't lost a housewife, he'd axed the keystone of his empire, the only light in his darkness, the secret engine he never noticed. He bombarded me with calls and texts. "Sophie, I was wrong, please come home. The kids need you, I need you. Whatever you want, it's yours. Amber's already gone." I'll be home every night. Just come back. I never opened a single line, my phone barred unknown numbers. He resorted to staking out my building. One afternoon I left the office to find him by the curb, gaunt, Dylan, eyes sunken, the old swagger gone. He lunged forward. Sophie. My bodyguards blocked him. I paused, gaze frosting over. There's nothing left to say, Mr. Sterling. There is everything, he raved. I see it now. I was blind, ungrateful. One more chance, that's all I ask. Bloodshot desperation swam in his stare, his voice cracked on the beg. It's a little late for that, isn't it? Hearts don't go cold in a single day. I stared at his wretched face and felt nothing. I almost found it funny. Chance? I echoed. Victor, the night you stood me up for Amber and left me waiting alone in that restaurant for 4 hours, I gave you one. When you chased every cheap thrill and paraded your affairs so our marriage became the punchline of every Riverdale dinner party, I gave you another. Every time you took my devotion as your due and treated my love like Shaw's inexhaustible line of credit, I gave you dozens more. You squandered every single one. Each word was a blade sliding between his ribs. He went paper white, lips trembling, voice gone. So, I said, meeting his eyes one last time, calm and final, the windows closed. Once Victor realized no grand gesture would haul me back, his obsession swerved into something darker, self-destruction. He locked himself inside Cloudtop Estate, saw no one, signed nothing, and measured his days in whiskey. He'd drink until the room spun, then replay our old videos on a loop. Me beside him in that cramped studio the first birthday we celebrated together. Me cheering when he landed his first round of funding. Our wedding, rings sliding onto fingers, promises dissolving even as we spoke. The day the twins arrived, me exhausted, smiling, Noah wailing, Ella perfect. He hunted for the version of Sophie who had lived only for him. The sweeter the footage, the harsher the present felt. The more he watched, the clearer it became what he'd lost. Sterling, headless, lurched into free fall. Flagship projects froze, the stock nosedived, the board howled. At last a VP he'd personally promoted rounded up a few key shareholders and prepared a coup, a hostile takeover that would carve his life's work to pieces. Word reached me within hours. Morgan found me in the North Star Lounge, forehead creased. Riley, if Sterling collapses, your preferred shares crater. Should we? No, I cut in. I would ride to the rescue, on my terms, at my price. I waited until Sterling's share price kissed the gutter, until the boardroom was a cage of screaming monkeys, until every headline pronounced Victor finished. Then the call came, Shaw unknown number. His chief staff, voice cracking. Alex, please. The CEO's drunk himself into a stomach bleed, he's in the ICU. The company's headless, the jackals are at the gate. This is everything he built. A short pause. Text me the hospital, I said. 30 minutes later I stood in the VIP suite. Victor lay waxy under fluorescent light, fur snaking into his arm. When he saw me, dead eyes sparked. He tried to push himself upright. Sophie, you came, you still care. I stayed 3 yards away, ice cold. Don't flatter yourself. I'm not here for you. I pulled a folder from my bag and dropped it on the bedside table. North Star's buyout offer. I'll stop the bleeding, eviscerate the jackals, and stabilize Sterling International. Hope flared in his hollow face. But, I continued, I want 30% voting control. He froze. 30%, stacked on the preferred shares I'd kept in the divorce, would let me seize the throne any afternoon I chose. His eyes skated over the numbers, disbelief crowding out despair. You're swallowing my company? I smiled, thin, razor sharp. Your company? Victor, half its sinews were knitted from my sleepless nights. I'm simply reclaiming equity life owes me. Sign or don't, I shrugged. Refuse, and Sterling gets butchered at dawn, you lose everything. I'm at a few basis points, a rounding error. 3 minutes. Tick-tock. The only sounds were the drip of the 4 and the ragged saw of his breathing. At the 3-minute mark he closed his eyes, every muscle spent. I agree. I tucked the signed sheets into my bag. Excellent. My team takes over at open. You, heel. I walked out without a backward glance. From that instant he was beaten in love and, more importantly, crushed in business. With fresh capital and surgical precision I staunched the hemorrhage. The conspirators, VP and shareholders alike, were purged before the week ended. Operations rebooted, share price climbing. Everyone still called him CEO, yet every material signature now required my approval. We became boss and subordinate. Each dawn we sat at opposite ends of the long mahogany table, he with the title, I with the power. He droned through reports, I issued directives. The inversion was more vicious than any rack or lash. He dwindled into silence, mechanically initialing memos. I remodeled the group with the blueprints I had hoarded for years, new verticals, hostile raids of my own, debt restructures, tech pipelines. Sterling's flag planted in fresh continents. The press crowned me legend, divorced mother of two who bootstrapped a hostile takeover of Shah Empire, all while packing school lunches. My face sold magazines. At the height of the fanfare, Amber materialized. She looked gaunt, last season's fast fashion hanging from her shoulders, bare face mottled with tears. She threw herself in front of my rolls. Alex, please. Tell him to lift the blacklist. I lifted Shaw's eyebrow. I hadn't touched her. She sobbed, palms on the hood. The moment Victor tossed me out, every agency, every producer slammed their doors. It has to be him. You're the only one he listens to now. A single word and I could work again. Pity never surfaced. Sam, you boarded this roller coaster eyes wide open. 1. I said, I'm not his keeper, he worships only himself. 2. Your livelihood is not my brief. 3. Get off the asphalt and figure out how to earn Shaw honest living. I tapped the glass, chauffeur eased around her. In the mirror she shrank to a speck, another discarded pawn. I don't traffic in absolution. She chose the shortcut, the toll was due. I had a finale to choreograph, one last sold-out performance before the curtain fell for good. Noah and Ella's joint birthday gala took place at a private estate that belonged to me. I'd invited every friend, every relative, every bold-faced name in the business world. The spectacle was grand and warm at once. The children wore darling miniature tuxedos and gowns, two tiny angels darting across the lawn. Victor came. I had told my assistant to send him Shaw invitation. He lurked in a corner of the crowd, devouring the sight of me and the kids, his eyes glittering with craving. He assumed my invitation was a signal that I was ready to reconcile, to pick up the pieces of us. Halfway through the party I carried Ella and led Noah up to the small temporary stage. Thank you all for taking time from your busy schedules to celebrate my children's birthday. I smiled, let my gaze sweep the audience, and finally let it settle on Victor. Today, besides cutting cake, I have one more announcement. The chatter died, every guest stared, curious. Victor's heart climbed into his throat. He waited for the sentence he most longed to hear. At that exact moment Jake stepped onto the platform. Thanks to James Lee's latest film he had already crashed into the international A-list, his poise now seasoned and calm. He walked to my side, naturally lifted Ella from my arms, and, in front of the entire assembly, dropped to one knee. From his pocket he produced a velvet box. He opened it, a diamond blazed inside. Sophie, he said, tilting his head back, eyes sincere and burning, marry me. A communal gasp rippled through the garden. Head swiveled between Jake, me, and Victor, now chalk white in the corner, like spectators at a tennis match. The drama had eclipsed every expectation. Victor's body swayed. He stared at the stage, eyes so bloodshot they looked ready to bleed. The reconciliation he had pictured was turning out to be his ex-wife's engagement scene. Irony, cruelty, both words felt too small. I glanced at Jake on his knee, then at the man teetering near the roses. The real show is just beginning. I didn't answer Jake right away. Instead I lifted the microphone and spoke slowly to Victor. Mr. Sterling, I know you came tonight waiting for Shaw answer. My voice carried through the speakers, clear to the farthest hedge. In your mind my invitation was a second chance. You thought, for the children's sake, for the mirage of a complete family, I'd come back. You even brought a ring, didn't you? I watched his hand slip instinctively toward the inside pocket of his tailored suit. Sure enough, a rigid bulge lay beneath the silk. I laughed softly. Victor, you're forever so certain the world revolves around you. You believe everything lost will trot back the moment you crook a finger. You're wrong. I looked down at Jake, took the ring from his palm, but did not slide it on. I raised it to the sunlight instead. The diamond's flash stabbed straight into Victor's eyes. I asked you here so you could witness that Sophie, after walking away from you, is thriving. Witness that I can give my children a joyful future, no shouting, no Cold War silence, only love. Witness that I deserve to be loved in the open, honestly, by someone better. As for you, my gaze returned to him, empty now, a sheet of ice. You have nothing to do with me, or with my children, ever again. Your performance is over. Don't disturb our lives again. I set the microphone down, turned to Jake, shook my head, and returned the ring. Jake, thank you. but right now I simply want to be myself. Jake blinked, then smiled in understanding. He stood and hugged me. I get it. Still, I'll wait. Below the stage, at my words, nothing to do with us, Victor finally collapsed. A mouthful of scarlet sprayed the white tablecloth as he pitched backward. The last thing he saw before the dark swallowed him was my back, turned to him forever, laughing with Noah and Ella. That receding silhouette told him the truth. He had lost me, utterly, irrevocably. Victor woke in a hospital, not a VIP suite, just Shaw ordinary single room. His chief staff slumped in a chair, haggard. Mr. Sterling, you're awake. Victor moved his lips. The voice that emerged was cracked gravel. The kids. The chief staff looked away. Riley took the young master and miss on their world schooling trip. She said, she wants them to see the planet. World schooling. The final ember in Victor's eyes died. He had lost completely. He'd believed the children were his trump card. Yet I had used a spectacle of a proposal and the simple phrase, nothing to do with us, to sever every thread of hope. I hadn't even accepted Jake's ring. My message was plain, I left not for another man, but because I no longer needed him. That pure, absolute abandonment hurt more than any revenge. After discharge, Victor returned to Cloudtop Estate. The mansion that once proclaimed his status, now a gilded tomb. He locked himself inside, daylight barred. Hallucinations began. Me and Shaw apron fluttering between stove and sink, the children skidding across the marble foyer, their laughter echoing. He would lunge to embrace us, and embrace only cold air. He started writing letter after letter, recalling every minute from our first meeting to our last kiss, repenting, begging. He mailed them to my company, never knowing my assistant fed them, still sealed, straight into the shredder. I left Sterling Industries in the hands of professional managers, pinning him to the very empire he had prized. He couldn't die, he was the company's living mascot. He couldn't flee, every asset now danced to my tune. I granted him luxury and stripped him of purpose. A perfect, custom-built purgatory for a man too proud to bend. Alive, yet living death, conscious, yet conscious only of regret. 2 years later the bell rang at NASDAQ. North Star Investment Group, my brainchild, went public. Wearing a white suit, I stood on the trading floor balcony, poised, unhurried. Beside me stood Jake, now a household name on every continent, and Morgan, once a film director, now a seasoned entrepreneur. Noah and Ella flanked me in matching ivory blazers, tiny knights guarding their queen. Flashbulbs popped, my smile beamed across every screen on earth. Forbes splashed the moment on its cover. From cast-off society wife to Queen of Wall Street, the unstoppable rise of Sophie. At that exact hour, on the opposite side of the planet, Victor hunched alone in Cloudtop's cavernous media room. The live feed projected my image larger than life. He lifted a trembling hand, trying to brush my face on the screen. Sophie. The voice that left his throat sounded 100 years old. For 2 years he had haunted those empty halls, turning memory into a cage. He had cradled the finest treasure in the world, then hurled it away. Now the treasure blazed across the sky, reachable only by telescope. The chief staff slipped in and set a newspaper on the console. Front page. A candid shot of me lifting Ella onto my shoulders while Noah chased pigeons. Headline: Sophie, my success is mine alone, no man required. Victor lifted the paper, fingertips tracing my laughing face. Tears slid silently off his chin. He knew the remainder of his breaths would be spent in this quiet, endless atonement. Custodian of a mansion without its heart, spectator to a star he could never again touch. And I, Sophie, stripped of every label that once clung to me, wife, rescuer, victim, stand finally as myself, singular, unbound, incandescent. This, at last, is the ending that belongs to me, complete, not because someone else completed it, but because I completed myself. Thank you for listening. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this story? If you liked it, please like and share with friends. We'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next tale. See you next time.